What's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you guys for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got a 2 versus 2 for you on a patch .97, the currently in development build for 3rd Age Reforged, and this is going to be played on the frozen lakebed map, which for once in my very long history of showing you this map is actually frozen. Let's take a look at some of the army comps now, and then we can jump into the replay itself. Hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is the forces of Imladris, being commanded by DF Peak, and it is very much a rush-oriented army, I would say at first glance. It's got a single company here of the Eldarinway Archers, and a ton of infantry, 2 companies of the Imladris Guardians with their armor upgrades forming his front line. They're backed up with 2 companies of Eldarinway Hatal. And on his right wing, it seems that he's stacked it with his shock infantry, so 1 company of Harumakil, and then 1 company of the Bruin and River Ward. So it seems like this is going to be the part of his line where he tries to win that infantry fight. Moving on over here, we have a company of the Doomsmen of Varda, because of course we do. I have not seen a single build in .97 that does not incorporate the Elven Knights. Very, very effective unit indeed, although quite expensive. In the back here, the final line of Peak's infantry force, we have the Keepers of Iglos, which are an interesting unit. They're a little bit less damaging than the Eldarinway Harumakil, or the Haruhatal rather, but they have a very strong morale supporting effect. So I believe they give, I think it's +5 in 50 meters now. We've updated some of our morale traits a fair bit, which I'll talk a little bit more about in subsequent videos. But yeah, very useful for keeping, especially these elite units, in the fray for an extremely long period of time. It's nearly impossible to rout this kind of Imladris army when they're full elite like this. And then finally we have the Gwythi Myrdain, who have received a little bit of an update, courtesy of one of our devs, Dreezy. They are now a 2-handed shock unit rather than a mace and board unit. They're still armor piercing, of course, and a little bit less a little bit less powerful defensively. Their current stats are definitely a work in progress. I would like to mention that before anyone in the comments has anything to say about it. But yeah, so that does it for Peak's army. Let's move on now to his ally. This is the forces of Khan, being commanded by Angsvitz, and he has actually sent in this replay to me. So big thank you to Angsvitz for supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it. He's brought 2 companies of the Variag Horde, a mid-tier bow archer unit for Khan. He's also brought in support a single company of the Nomadic Infantry, which are, I would say that they're an upper high-tier infantry unit, but they also have a missile attack, which makes them very versatile. His front line, and his main line indeed, is composed of Nurad Halberds and I believe 2 companies of Nurad Footmen, who are mixed in here as well for support. He's got some Variag Warriors, the aforementioned Nurad Footmen you can see right there, 1 company of the Storm Guard of Nurad, who it is worth mentioning, they have had their morale trait shuffled around a little bit. Previously it was like +5 in 100 meters. We're trying to reserve that very powerful trait for select units, namely the Troll Drummers. So they have subsequently been brought down to 10 morale in 25 meters. So still a potent game-changing effect, but it's just in less of a radius, which is I think necessary. More Variag Warriors, 2 companies of Variag Warriors there, Nurad Footmen, and then 2 companies of Variag Bowmen on his front lines, and they're going to be a useful support unit. If you take a look out in front of the Variags, mixed in here with the stakes, we've got 2 companies of Hawacha, which for Khandish armies that focus on the Hawacha and decide that they want to bring 2 of them, generally I find that a lot of their killing power is localized in these 2 units, and they're going to get as much damage done as possible into the early game, because once the enemies close with this Khandish army, it's going to be a lot harder to maneuver these Hawacha into a position where they can actually be useful. So especially during that early skirmish phase, or even when a rush army is bearing down on them, the Hawacha can be extremely useful. And of course all the bowmen that Angsvitz has are going to be very happy in this kind of comp, since the Hawacha can potentially cause your enemies to move forward, even into a position that they will later on regret. So that does it for the blue team armies. Let's go ahead and see what Team Red is bringing to the battle today. Across the field from Imladris, we have the forces of Numenor, being commanded by FFA Muffins, and for whatever reason you can't see the faction symbol that WK worked very hard on, so I'm going to put that up there in the top left for you, and you can take a look at it. A lot of very carefully considered work went into the composition of their heraldry, so Gotta hand it to WK. He is extremely thorough. But in any case, let's take a look at some of the army comps here. Got some Roman marksmen out in front. 2 companies of them, I would wager, given the length of the formation. We've got a unit of Temple Guard out in front, which is going to be hell for the Imladris Knights. The Temple Guard and armor-piercing archers are very much a, I don't want to say a hard counter, but they are a very effective means of dealing with knights without having to sacrifice some of your cavalry, which of course Numenor does not exactly have in great numbers. Second line here, composed of the Seafarers of Nindamos. We'll get a nice look at them there. And despite the fact that they are armed with javelins, they do not throw javelins. For the purposes of stats, their projectile is considered to be a throwing axe, so it's higher base damage, but it's not armor piercing. And unlike many of the other throwing axe units in the game, the Seafarers and Nindamos have only two volleys that they can throw, as opposed to 5, which the average throwing axe unit has. And that's just to balance out the fact that the unit in here behind them are the Romana Marines. You can break quite a lot of them, and they all have armor-piercing javelins, which are extremely powerful. So Inlighters can be very deadly, especially when using shock tactics to soften up enemies with the Romana Marines before they charge in. A little bit of lag there. Over here we have the Alcorandas Faithful, named after the flagship of the last king of Numenor, Ar-Pharazôn. And they are melee knights, but they're a little bit less numerous than your average melee knight unit. They are not only available to Numenor, but also to select inheritor factions which carry on the legacy of the Fallen Island. That being, in particular, Umbar. So Umbar has access to this melee knight unit as well. And back here, another company of Romana marksmen, and then another company of the Seafarers of Nindamos. And then finally, last but not least, we have the Eldolande Nobles, which are a new unit, obviously they're a new unit, but a new unit type that has been added to the mod 10.97. This is a melee bodyguard, so they're kind of a halfway marker in between elite knights and your average melee cavalry unit. They are 2 HP. They've got pretty decent bonus versus cavalry, not nearly as much as melee knights, and their stats are a little bit lower overall, but they have great defensive values, especially their armor. The Eldolande Nobles rely on that quite a lot. But in any case, enough blah blah. Moving on over to the second Red Team army, we have the forces of Cardolan, being commanded by Di, King of the North. He has brought some mercenary cavalry. I presume that they are upgraded as well, because they can be very effective. 2 companies of them, in fact. Got some Minas Grithlin sharpshooters out in front of them. In the back here, Hearthguard of Amon Sul, extremely useful unit for supporting nearby Cardolan units. They are not exactly amazing offensively, but the main draw for this unit is that, one, they are very, very tanky, so you can use them to hold problem areas in your line potentially. But they also give a substantial amount of morale to nearby units. I think this is one of the non-Troll Drummer units that gives +5 in 100 meters, but it might have been lowered to +5 in 50 meters. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head. But extremely useful, especially in a Cardolan army, which is a little bit lower on morale on average. Over here we have the Royal Court of House Thorondor, who I'm very happy to report to you are going to be getting a new model. It's going to be reminiscent of the Royal Court of House Thorondor. Wait, these guys are Thorondor? Yes. Okay, so the Royal Court of House Amlight. I always get these 2 houses mixed up. But it will have some pretty key and distinctive aesthetic differences. And, of course, Gandalf is still going to be in the unit, which is really cool. Love having the hero units in some of our bodyguards. Now we move on to the meat and potatoes of the Cardolan army. This front line, we've got some Greenway Garrison Spearmen here. I've got a bunch of Greenwatch Garrison Footmen with, oh god, I can't remember the name of them. What are they? Minas Grithlin Swordsmen, that's it. Although I can already notice a little bit of a deployment error here. Generally, the purpose of mixing in a heavily armored and shielded unit with your pikes is to prevent arrows from reaching your more lightly armored and unshielded pikemen. But Di has deployed his swordsman a little bit farther back than what he needs to, so the front rank here is actually exposed. So we'll see what sort of consequences that may have for him. But yeah, ton of the Greenwatch Garrison Footmen mixed in with the Minas Grithlin Swordsmen, who are significantly improved over last patch. And then a second company of the Minas Grithlin Sharpshooters, who have gotten a fair amount more elite, I would say. Unlike the other Minas Tirith units, these guys are considered to be highly trained, so their damage is a bit higher, their morale is a bit higher, and their ability to deal with morale shocks and reversals in battle without immediately panicking and fleeing is better than their other Minas Tirith counterparts, so that's a useful thing to note. And then over here, finally, we have a company of Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen. And I'm almost positive he's got a couple of hidden units in here as well, 2 units of Gwathlo trackers and maybe another unit of archers in addition to. But yeah, altogether, pretty strong Cardolan army, and that's going to do it for our army comps. Let's go ahead and jump into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. And so the battle is going to begin with a beautiful bang as the Hwacha here begin to prepare to unleash some serious hell upon the Cardolan lines. Oh yeah, here we go. I think what they're going after is the cavalry, because these rockets have a tendency to kill anything that they touch, although of course it is very random. Yeah, look at that. Look at the devastation that 2 units of Hwacha can bring, which is why I've found that people sometimes enjoy bringing these 2 units. I wouldn't say that it's extremely common, but it is certainly something that people have been able to use to great effect, I found, on the test patch and, of course, on 0.96 as well. Ooh, nasty damage there. The Hwacha can really only fire, I think, about twice, so they're not going to be able to play that particular card too many times. Let's take a look on the other side. FFA Muffins moving forward, not quite within bow shot of the Elder Ringway archers, but he does want to get a little bit farther forward and at least support the right wing of his ally. Another devastating volley unleashed by the Hwacha, claiming the lives of many of these Minas Tirith sharpshooters. It seems that DI is so far content to just weather the storm. He's got the numbers. A lot of his more important troops are in loose formation, so the Hwacha is not going to be as effective as it might otherwise have been if it had caught him by surprise in tight formation. Engsvitz, satisfied with the damage that he's done to DI's front line, is now shifting his Hwacha a little bit elsewhere. I would imagine he wants to get up here on this hill. That would be the perfect position to fire down into the Numenorians, although, much like Cardolan, the Numenorians are very, very spread out, so the amount of chaos that he's going to inflict is going to be limited due to the smart deployment of FFA Muffins, and I would expect no less. FFA Muffins is probably one of the better players on our Discord. There we go. A lull has settled in across the battlefield now as Engsvitz is shifting some of his forces over to aid his ally Peak and to put a little bit of pressure on Numenor. So what I'm going to do is fast forward just a little bit. I'll see you guys in a few moments. And now it's going to be DI's turn to move forward and be aggressive. You can see the hidden Gwathlo tracker companies have revealed themselves in a double line. It's going to be reasonably effective, I would say, against the Variag Bowmen, but the Variag Bowmen will probably be able to outlast them with their shield value and their armor. And of course, there's a lot of cavalry nearby, although it is worth mentioning that Engsvitz has shifted all of his infantry along with his artillery over to his allies' side of things. So they're going to be working in tandem. Engsvitz here being very aggressive with the Brotherhood of the Lance, which looks like it's going to catch DI napping a little bit. And those Brotherhood of the Lance are going to carve a bloody path through the ranks of these Gwathlo trackers. A very nicely timed volley of arrows there, which stops just as the Brotherhood of the Lance impact with the Gwathlo trackers, thereby minimizing his casualties. A couple Brotherhood, about 3 of them, I think, fell there. Did a decent amount of damage with the Gwathlo trackers, but of course, DI is going to be able to fire back into the rear of the Brotherhood of the Lance as they flee. Although with their armor upgrades, they're going to be able to stand up to that arrow storm for an extended period. Looks like Engsvitz is now rounding back towards his foe. He's going to run down these Gwathlo trackers a second time, and DI is, well, going to get caught again with the same trick, which is a little bit surprising. Now would definitely be a good time to bring forward some of the Greenway, or the Greenwatch. Is it Greenway? Okay, it is Greenway Garrison. Some of the Greenway Garrison Spearmen to try and defend these units, and honestly, they probably should have been out here in front the whole time. And that being said, Minas Tirith sharpshooters, if they get a shot off here, will be devastating to the Brotherhood of the Lance, but it seems like they're a little bit slow. Yeah, I don't think they're going to hit anybody, but they are going to claim some of the lives of the Variag Bowmen, so I suppose there's that at least, and that's going to give the blue team a 2% advantage. Let's see what we got going on over here. Looks like the Alcarandas Faithful and the Eldolonde Nobles menacing the front line of Khand. I think they were going after the Hwacha, which is, yeah, it's a wise decision. That could certainly be a pain in the ass for many of the Numenorians, and especially at close range like this, they could devastate DI's army. And they're actually quite well situated to do so. Up here on the hill, they really have their pick of the litter, and DI is moving forward with the main host of his army. Meanwhile, over here, Dunedain and much of DI's cavalry engaged in close quarters against the Variags. Cavalry moving in here as well to support a second company. And then over here, what do we got? The Royal Court of House of the Rondor cycling charges in and out. Dunedain commanders doing the same thing. This is really nice wave tactics here on the part of DI as the Khandish begin to move forward with their cavalry to try and chase down some of the troublesome Dunedain of Cardolan. They're going to get caught by a lot of spear units. The spear cavalry of the Dunedain commanders is going to be well supported, and there's also some pike units nearby. And it's like DI is trying to just break the wing here. There was really no infantry that could stop him. So now if he moves forward together with his ally Numenor, if Numenor were to move in right now, I think that Khan would collapse very, very quickly under the weight of that assault, and they'd have basically be able to 2v1. Oof, the Elves and Mladris. Hwacha opening fire here, and it's just an absolute hellstorm. This is some Battle of the Bastards quality stuff here. Really nicely situated battery up there on the hill, enfilading fire along this unit of Minas Tirith swordsmen, and of course there's the Greenwatch garrison footmen getting caught up in this nightmare as well, also being peppered down by some of the Variag bowmen, and I believe I can see the Eldar bowmen in the back there as well. Yeah, DI wants to keep this momentum moving and move forward as quickly as possible and deal with the Khandish, because yeah, they're on the back foot right now. There's really not too much of a reason to hold his ground and to stay where he is. Muffins has moved forward a little bit, but it seems like there's some temerity on the part of the red team so far, and I don't think that is serving them in good stead. Though the Eldalande nobles being very aggressive, getting a nice piece of, I think that's the Hwacha crew. So that's going to be the last that we hear from them. No more Hwacha for Khand, and the Manic infantry getting caught up in there as well. They're going to be no match for the elite Eldalande nobles. You're at halberds moving forward to make sure that those cavalry, that cavalry company stays gone. Bruin and Riverlords moving in as well. Oh yeah, it's a good thing the Eldalande nobles got out of there when they did. And now DI is trying to pepper down his opponent while his front line is suffering quite grievously. I think this is going to prove to be a mistake. There's no reason that he couldn't be doing exactly what he's doing now, while moving forward with his pike companies, who would make quick work of the Nurad footmen and, of course, the Nurad halberds as well. They have an extreme range advantage. There's really no reason to be this passive, and I think that may end up being the straw that breaks the camel's back here. Nurad Windblades over here charging up to the Alcaron. That's faithful. It seems like the Elven Knights are over here as well, and maybe that's the cause of DI's unwillingness to move forward, but I think that they've got the tools they need here. Alcaron as faithful ain't no joke. Lots of nearby missile companies that they could use to support the cavalry of Numenor while they deal with all that remains of the Variag skirmishers and the more heavy-hitting units. Variag Horde here. Yeah, this is no problem. It's really more of a flea bite, but yeah, it's time to move forward. This passivity here is really unfortunate to watch. Well, Numenor could be putting a lot of pressure on the front line of Khandan and Mladris, but instead he's just kind of watching his ally get pummeled into the dirt by a combination of cavalry and skirmisher support from both the Khandish Horde and the Elves of Mladris. Oh, and now it starts to get ugly. Oh, never mind. I thought that was enemy cavalry. Greenway garrison spearmen being brought up to try and zone out some of these cavalry units. Over here, Nurad Windblades. Very much within range of a lot of these skirmishers, but they don't seem to be focused down. What do we got over here? Yeah, the bow skirmishers. Oh, I see. DI's putting some enfilading fire into this unit of Nurad footmen and Nurad halberds, which is a decent choice. I probably would have focused a little bit more on the cavalry companies, but it seems that DI is trying to fight a skirmish battle at close range here with Khand and with Mladris, and it seems like, oh no, a Hwacha battery is back online, 8 men managed to survive. And now DI, I think this might be the point where he takes casualties that become critical, and this Cardolan army is about to be crippled. It's really unfortunate here. They had great momentum moving, and they've just kind of stopped. And I'm really mystified as to why they would have thought that necessary. And this Kondish Cav here, still in the back, still poking away. Well, it seems like the Variag Horde are now out of ammunition. They've actually fired their entire ammunition pool while Cardolan was sitting here. That's just so unfortunate. Nurad Windblades now back in, as my colleague UMAD Commander would say, loitering with intent. Doomsman of Varda down to about half strength. Mauled, but still deadly, still proud. A little bit of friendly fire there. More volleys from the Hwacha coming in. Wow. And yeah, these guys are just kind of sitting here, just trying to skirmish them down. I don't understand why this is necessary. Alcaranda's faithful. Oh no, they're about to get routed. No way. Oh, that would be devastating for Numenor's cavalry power. And indeed, they rout. Some carelessness there on the part of FFA Muffins. He threw them into the front of some Nurad halberds, and then they got caught out by some Broynan Riverwards who have a small bonus versus cavalry. Don't really understand why he would allow that to happen. Over here, Nurad footmen pushing into the front of the Cardolan line, and look how well they're doing. Like, the Nurad footmen are already on the verge of routing, and this is why it would have been a great idea for Cardolan to move forward earlier. Ooh, a big mistake here on the part of Engsvitz. Charging into the front of Pikes with his Nurad Windblade, and it's going to cost him very dearly. That unit was extremely healthy this entire time. Lost about a third of its combat strength in just a matter of moments. You watch Garrison Spearmen going to be, I guess, just sitting around watching while some cavalry units charge into the Mythgrithlan Sharpshooters. Mythgrithlan Sharpshooters getting sandwiched here by a combination of Doomsman of Varda and the Variag Horde. Really ugly for one of the more important parts of the Cardolan army. And what do you know? It got some hidden units here as well. Thieves of Tharbad. Ooh, they're going to make the Variag Horde pay for it. They're going to break almost immediately. Doomsman of Varda going to lose a couple of men in that exchange. And they got to turn around and get a beautiful hammer and anvil charge against the Cardolan line, and that might be enough to turn things around. And indeed, we're going to have a lot of breaking here from Cardolan. I think, ooh, there's some friendly fire as well from Numenor that's coming in. Minas Girthland Sharpshooters still trying to do work. We got over here Aldolande Nobles, Temple Guards. Temple Guards should have been brought to bear against the Doomsman of Varda very early on. They would certainly have thought twice about getting anywhere near this Cardolan army if that were the case. But despite the breaking on the part of Cardolan, it still seems like things are fairly even. DI has won on this on the right wing of this engagement, whereas the halberds are cleaning up what remains of the Minas Girthland swordsmen after the rear charge from the Gwaithí Myrdain, or rather from the Gwaithí Rockdor. Or sorry, Doomsman of Varda. Wow, can't even remember any of the names anymore. They've all changed so much. Reserve companies forming up to put the final nail in the coffin against DI's army. Got some Seafarers of Nindamos tossing their throwing axes into the Storm Guard of Khand, trying to chip away at some of that HP. Variag Bowmen looking like they're out of ammunition now. And DI's Cardolan army is really looking worse for wear. It's still around, but it looks like the elves have brought in some of their heavy-hitting elite units, and still Numenor is just sitting there. I expected a lot more aggression and a higher ability to read the field and see what's going on and respond accordingly from FFA Muffins. It's a little bit disappointing to see him allow his ally to effectively be double-teamed here. Meanwhile, things are still looking pretty ugly. The Keepers of Eglos pinned in place by some AP Thieves of Tharbad and being pummeled by a combination of Gwathla Trackers and Minas Girthland Sharpshooters, but still, they soldier on. And over here, the Gwaithí Myrdain are going about their bloody work pretty well unimpeded. The Minas Girthland Sharpshooters caught up in melee with them. That's not where they want to be at all. I would even have thrown the Hearthguard of Amansul in there just to hold back the Gwaithí Myrdain long enough for the Sharpshooters to do their work. DI desperately trying to disengage, trying to get some use out of the AP crossbow units that he's brought, which constitute a significant part of his killing power, especially against a unit like the Gwaithí Mhairdane. Royal Court of House Thorondor trying to charge them down. Gwaithí Mhairdane still standing strong, however. Eldalandi nobles over here driving back what remains of the Doomsmen of Varda, and it seems like a cavalry advantage has fallen firmly into the lap of both Numenor and their ally Cardolan. And now we start to see Numenor move over here, but they're going to be stripping away forces that would be extremely useful against the Imladris Guardians. This comes far too late, I think, to save DI's army and to preserve any sort of forces that he may have had remaining. Well, Thieves of Tharbad over here mixed in with some Minas Tirith swordsmen. Not doing anything about the Gwaithí Mhairdane over here, although it is to be understood to a degree that there's a lot of chaos on the battlefield right now, and a lot of the units, especially on the snow, have a tendency to look very similar to one another. Close quarters volley against the Gwaithí Mhairdane. That's going to cut down a good deal of them. Very effective against them. Over here, Hearthguard of Amansul still picking away the Gwaithí Mhairdane. Oof, big lag spike there. Firing into the rear of the Gwaithí Mhairdane, it will help, but it's not going to be that useful. Now the Gwaithí Mhairdane are going to pull off and instead go for the Hearthguard of Amansul, which is going to give DI the opening that he needs. This is an opportunity right here to destroy that unit of Gwaithí Mhairdane entirely. Although the Hearthguard of Amansul look like they might suffer a charge here from Doomsmen of Varda. I don't understand why DI would pull out of this. This is everything to his advantage. I guess maybe he doesn't want to get his general's bodyguard cut out or something, but like sacrifices need to be made. This, I think, ends up being a really big misstep. Minas Tirith and Sharpshooters at the very least have turned around. Over here, the Nurad Windblades and some of the Variag Horde, however, are bearing down on them, and that opportunity has been lost. Let's see what we got going on over here. Royal Court of House Thorondor. Maybe thinking about charging into the Elves of Imladris, but I don't think they want a piece of the Brunnen River Wards. As I said, they are good against cavalry. And over here, the rest of the Kondish force and the Eldarinui archers are now going to be free to double team Numenor, which is why I was so confused as to... Oh, that bloody lag. I was so confused as to why FFA Muffins would wait so long to actually get into action and start to engage the Imladris forces. He had everything he needed here to beat them in close quarters and to stop them from pressuring his ally, but he just kind of stood back and watched, which I just don't understand it. Ooh, Romana Marksman here, getting charged by Imladris Guardians. The Marksmen aren't bad. They'll give the Guardians a good fight, but I think the Guardians would ultimately end up winning this. There's a good deal of supporting fire coming in from the Seafarers of Nindamos, but the Seafarers of Nindamos are next to useless from the front against units like the Eldarinui Hadu Hatal and the Imladris Guardians. It's just not worth it. The Romana Marines, however, are going to exact a terrible toll for this trespass. So we got going on over here. Ooh, there goes the Cardolan General hacked down by the Gwaithí Mhairdane, and it looks like the Romana Marksmen are being used to pressure the Storm God of Narad and the Eldarinui archers to varying levels of effect. Meanwhile, the Seafarers of Nindamos suffering some friendly fire, and I don't think they're going to stand and fight for too much longer, but, you know, it is what it is. Sacrifices, as I said earlier, have to be made. Romana Marksmen fighting on the front lines here with some of the Neuron Halberds. They are definitely winning. Romana Marines charging in alongside what remains of Cardolan, which honestly is not very much. Got some Temple Guard in here, going toe-to-toe with the River Wards of Brunnen, and they're going to win that fight easy. Nice rear charge here from the House of Thorondor. It's got to finish off the Brunnen River Wards. Well, what do we got over here? The Keepers of Aglos have stood their ground very well. There's some Thieves of Tharbad in there, fighting pretty well to the death. Well, that's going to be all she wrote for them, especially with the addition of these Nurad Halberds. Got to hand it to the Keepers of Aglos. Extremely tanky. Stood up to that crossbow fire for an extremely extended period of time, and of course being surrounded by armor-piercing units. Nice rear charge here into the Halberds. DI trying to even the fight with his Royal Court of House Thorondor. Still 12 of them in the unit, which makes them extremely deadly. Oh no, down to 10. Oh, 9. They're ping-ponging back and forth. Going to get a nice charge here into the Brunnen River Wards. Many of them were unprepared. Some of them managed to turn and face their opponents, so they're going to get their melee defense bonus against the charge. Doom Knight Commanders charging in at the same time. Brunnen River Wards briefly dropping down to Shaken. And Numenor really pressing the elves hard at this point. Ooh, someone else's general just died. I think it might have been the elves of Imladris. And oddly enough, I think because of how blobbed up these units are, they seem to be losing against the Stormguard of Nurad, and of course I think there's some halberds in there as well. Over here, the Haruma kill. They're going to cut a bloody path through the Romena Marines and of course the Seafarers of Nindamos. This Haruma kill needed to be focused down with Romena Marines. I think that Numenor, in addition to the passivity, did not choose their targets very well. Meanwhile, over here, some Guardians mixed in with some Eldarin Mihedu Hatal. Got some Romena Marines, some Seafarers and Nindamos. All of the Numenorian reserves engaged against these two units of Elven infantry, who are holding their ground well. They are being crescent mooned a little bit, so I would expect that this is a fight that Numenor would ultimately win. And it seems like DI is coming over with his Royal Court of House of the Rondor to ensure that they do. Oh yeah, glorious rear charge time. Although not exactly a well-placed charge. Seems like he's trying to avoid the Herdu Hatal and instead charge into the Guardians. The Guardians turn around, countercharge. That might go not very well for the Royal Court of House of the Rondor. They've been doing their best so far, but it doesn't seem like many of the Guardians were cut down there, and that's because they managed to turn around and get both their shield bonus and their melee defense bonus working against that charge. Romena Marksman getting charged down here from the flank. You can really see the difference. This one, the unit doesn't even have the Windblades don't even have a armor-piercing charge, but they caught Numenor off guard, and the amount of damage that they did was quite impressive. Probably about 20 or so men there got cut down. Numenor trying to press in against the elves of Imladris on all sides, but it seems like the Imladris elves have cut their way out. Got some Romena Marksmen over here, now out of ammunition. They could be thrown in, but I don't think it's going to matter. Numenor doesn't have any of their killing power left. Yeah, they allowed their ally to get 2v1s, and then they got 2v1 themselves, and then didn't pick their targets very well, so yeah, it's going to cost them. Oh, maybe there's two companies of Elder Ridway Archers, and I didn't even realize it. Well, what do you know? Two companies of Elder Ridway Archers. And the Marksmen here, despite the fact that these units are quite heavily outnumbered, and the Marksmen are basically fresh, it doesn't seem like they're having a good time here. That being said, it's a fairly even fight. Doesn't look like it, but it definitely is. Temple Guard still standing, doing work against the Storm Guard of Nurad. Still a decent amount of Numenorians left, but they're being pressed by the Burning River Wards on one side, and some Halberds and some Storm Guard on the other. Take a look at the percentages there, 80 to 86. Yep, blue team definitely pulling ahead. There's no reason to think that they will stop. Rear charge there into the Imladris Guardians. Gonna do an okay amount of damage. A few of them are gonna fall. It seems like the Guardians are actually cutting their way through here, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that the Seafarers of Nindamos are a holding unit and not really a damaging one. Rear charge by the Nurad Windblades into the Romena Marines is all but going to seal their fate. Let's kick things up to full speed now. Small pockets of Numenorian resistance still remain. Got some Romena Marksmen over here that could be thrown into the rear of the Guardians that might even out that fight a little bit. Another Rinway Heduma kill, charging into the rear of the Romena Marksmen. Oh, this is game over. Rear charge now from the Nurad Windblades. I think we're going to see the Marksmen begin to flee en masse. And there goes somebody's general in that mosh pit over there. It's really hard to tell. Romena Marksmen now broken and fighting to the death. Romena Marines not having fun over here either. Oof. This is some... I've said it a few times, but this is some Battle of the Bastards quality shit. Just enemies piled high everywhere, while furious masses of men fight on the interior. It's very apocalyptic. Another Rinway Haruma still from Peak, being brought to bear against the rear of the Royal Court of House of the Rondor, and I think that's going to be all she wrote. And they're all going to fall there very quickly. One single Doomsman of Varda, I'm sure, helped hasten their demise. These Romena Marksmen going to break. 91 to 84. Oh, and there goes the Numenorian general, I would think. The Temple Guard going to be the last one standing. Oh, among the last standing. Still some Romena Marksmen here, but they're about to be redded by a combination of two companies of the Elder Rinway Archers. Storm Guard of Nurad. They managed to weather that storm, and they've come out on top. Temple Guard here, small pocket of them still remaining, fighting back to back, but they're being cut down. Quaithi Mirdane have now joined the fray. Very unfortunate. And there's not really a lot of Khand left, but there is certainly a fair amount of Imladra still around. Yeah, look at that. It's a lot of golden boys. Keepers of Aglos still out here fighting now with some Armena marksmen. I don't really know what happened out here. The Keepers of Aglos have just been in this general area. They've shifted around and fought a whole bunch of different units. Been a really interesting back and forth. There you go. The Armena marksmen going to break. In a few minutes, the last of the Temple Guard will be cut down by the Elves of Imladris and the few remaining Storm Guard of Khand. An interesting fight. One that I think, as I've mentioned several times now, and I don't want to be too hard on the players, and I feel like I already have been, but the mismanagement of the armies of DI and the poor timing of FFA Muffins were what I think contributed to this defeat here. This is a fight that I absolutely believe that they could have won, and that they could have won quite handily, but there was some hesitation when there needed to be action, and DI just kind of stood there and took an inordinate amount of casualties when he didn't really need to. And FFA Muffins kind of stood on the sidelines and watched it happen. So top 10 anime betrayals right there, and yeah, but it was still a good game. Something to learn from, certainly. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this 2v2. Hope you guys are enjoying our coverage of patch .97 so far, and I hope you'll join me for whatever comes next. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.